Hi guys, I've put this clip together to provide some overall points of feedback on Assessment 1. Hopefully you've looked through your rubric and the comments to work out what you did well and what you need to work on moving forward. Again, if there's anything that you want to talk through further, make time to consult with the teaching team and we can give you a little bit more clarity on those kind of things. This clip just draws attention to some key areas for you to be thinking about when you move forward into assessments 2 and 3 to make sure that we're always developing on what we've done before. Okay, in terms of things that were done well overall across the group, when you focused in depth on a few examples or concepts, so you focused on a few of those things from your personal reflection or a couple of aspects of the frameworks or theories, and you did that in depth. That was something, if you did do that, you performed really well in the assessment. Where you got into detail in terms of the emotions, actions and outcomes. Now, if you remember, that was a particular criteria to address each of those areas. Now, if you just provided some kind of overarching thing like, yeah, I felt really happy doing this, but you didn't elaborate on that, or I had some really great feelings and emotions in my experiences, but you didn't elaborate on that, you didn't perform as well on that criteria. Okay, so where you were able to identify an emotion, unpack it, link it to an action and link it to a longer term outcome, then you were able to perform much better in this assessment. The last one there is where people provided considered descriptions of personal examples and application of theory. Now, I say that considered it. As we're marking and as we're reading through your work, we can see where people have spent time thinking, researching, drafting, coming back and refining. There's always a big difference in the quality of people's work if they've spent time doing that. So that's where that kind of considered approach comes from. Okay, so those are the three things that overall, if students did those things well, then they performed much better in the assessment. Now, while assessment 2 and 3 are a little bit different, I can still emphasise the importance of carrying those things through. So making sure that you are looking at a few, for your research assessments, you're looking at a few concepts, but you're doing it in depth. So you're not looking at a whole broad review of everything to do with volunteering or everything to do with youth participation. You're really focusing in on some key areas and building some really strong arguments, in-depth arguments on a few examples and concepts. So that is going to be consistent when you approach assessment 2 and when you approach assessment 3. So while we're not dealing with emotions, actions or outcomes in the other two assessments, this idea of getting into detail, really unpacking arguments, is key. So if you identify a few interesting points in your literature review, really go into depth on those. All right, make sure that you're building nice paragraphs and then some nice sections of report that really unpack the interesting things that you're finding out. Okay, and again, that kind of considered engagement. So making sure that you are giving yourself time to think about what it is you're looking at, how you're building your arguments and presenting that work, and particularly for assessment 2, that kind of so what that I've talked to a few of you about. How are we linking things to recommendations? How are you coming up with your recommendations? Really giving some time and thought to make sure that those are really worthwhile. All right, apart from that, some other key things to think about as you move into assessment 2 and 3. I've talked a little bit already about that, getting in depth. Okay, make sure that you're really focusing in and building on those interesting points. You're not going to perform as well if you highlight an interesting point in a sentence, but then you provide nothing to back it up. Okay, so make sure that you are reading back through your work, thinking, have I really given this interesting point enough attention? Do I need to go and find another 1 or 2 articles to really build or flesh out this argument? Okay. Proofreading, you're going to be hearing this, I'm sure, in a number of your subjects. It makes such a big difference to the final quality of your assessment. So make sure you're giving yourself time to sit down and proofread, and that you are doing things like in Microsoft Word, turning on spell check, turning on grammar check, checking your long sentences, checking your grammar. Okay, asking a friend or a family member to read through and make sure that they can understand what you're writing about and that it's easy to read, that they can pick up any spelling mistakes and little things like that as you go through too. That makes a really huge difference with the final product of your work. Making sure you have clear structure to your document. So not, everyone comes to this with a different approach. I am a big fan of using things like subheadings. Spend a little bit of time, do a quick Google. If you don't already know how to use heading hierarchies in Word, do a quick Google of how to use them, okay? Because not only will it help you structure your document nicely and consistently, you can also automatically generate your tables of contents. So spend a little bit of time working that out. That will help you into the future for years to come when you're report writing. I use it in everything that I do. Other things like, numbering sections, little style things like this go a huge step in structuring your document and demonstrating to the reader that you are in charge and you're taking control of what you're putting together and you're helping your reader work through your document. Okay, so doing everything that you can to make sure you've got that clear and logical structure, and it's easier for people to read as they're going through. And then the last point that I've made there is integrating references in text. So a few of you do this well and others it's still a little bit needing further development. So if you're unsure about this, there are different resources across the university to refine your writing. There's also a few different YouTube clips around this. I'm also happy to talk through with you. So if you're not sure about your in-text referencing, come and have a chat. The other thing that came through a couple of times were that people's in-text referencing didn't match up with their referencing list and vice versa. Make sure that whatever you're referencing in text is reflected in your reference list. I have previously provided a couple of YouTube clips around how we structure our referencing lists, the APA formatting and what to do with that. So if you're unsure, please get in touch. And a couple of things to finish off, just to make sure that you understand the importance, and I emphasise these to finish up with. Make sure you have consulted the rubric. Be clear on what is being assessed in each criteria, and also be aware of the weightings in each criteria. We mark to the criteria. If you put in a really great piece of work that doesn't match the criteria, you're not going to perform as well as someone that has gone through and met what the criteria is asking for in that rubric. Secondly, give yourself time to prepare, time to think through your approach, time to draft, time to refine, and time to proofread. That is makes such a big difference at the for the end result, and really will put the people that do these things in good stead to perform really well in our assessments 2 and 3. Consult with the teaching team. So I have spoken to quite a few of you, and Stephen has spoken with a few of you at Nathan. Keep engaging with us, checking your clarification, making sure that you're on track, testing your ideas out with us, because that makes sure that we, when we get to that reviewing your submissions, that we can make sure as well that we've got the best work from you. Okay, and then finally, ask a friend or a classmate to do some mock marking for you. So using the rubric, get them to go through your assessment and determine if you're meeting the criteria like you think you are, or if there's some areas that you need to develop a bit further. All right, thanks everyone. Hopefully that's given you some really good things to focus on as you move into assessment 2 and 3, and happy to hear any questions from you where we can support you further. Thank you.